Okay, we're live, but you can double check. Okay, so I'm going to go to YouTube. I'm just going to pretend we're not live, and that way it'll be more interesting.
But then how are we going to see the... I like to open up the chat box.
Oh, I can bring the chat box in.
It's hard to see it on this window. If I can like pop it out.
No, I mean,
How about this?
here, you want the chat box? I'll give you the chat box.
I've got the chat box on my display. I just put it in a different window.
See what I can do is I can right click on my XSplit and then no, that's not right. I'm not going to give you the chat box. It's too much work. Okay, can you guys? You have to listen to it through YouTube though. So go to my channel and listen to it through YouTube. If there's anybody listening on YouTube, this has never been seen before. This is like insider information. Is that true? Well, except for maybe SE Facebook group.
It was just posted like 60 seconds ago. So you're just
oh, this is
just
hot off the press.
Hot off the press.
What's with the mic set up there? That looks kind of
it's my new floating mics setup. It just it just floats in the middle between us.
Did you understand what I said? You have to listen to it. Oh, it really doesn't need to listen to it because he's memorized it. But if you want to hear it, Pete, you have to go to my YouTube channel and listen to it because you won't hear it through up here.
Okay.
Okay.
He's heard it.
I'm going to press
This.
play. I haven't heard it.
I'll just make a claim and just give me your sense of confidence on it. Say on a scale from 0 to 100 that is true.
Okay.
So I own a Ferrari.
I'm going to guess 10.
10.
No offense.
No, that's fine. So,
just because you're using a GoPro and not a Red.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I press pause, Pete? I want to say something here, Reed, but I don't want to spoil this for it. Nobody's going to watch this anyhow, so who cares? If anybody does this Ferrari thing experiment, your answer should be 1% or lower every time. There's only 7,000 Ferraris sold each year around the world.
Unless I look like a guy who would own a Ferrari.
Yeah, but you could be worth $50 million and not own a Ferrari because you just didn't. First of all, you got to want a Ferrari, and second of all, you got to order a Ferrari, and you might be like way down on the list. So anyhow, that's.
So currently 10%. Why'd you put it there?
Because you're using a GoPro, not a Red. And if you can afford a Ferrari, you can afford a Red or anything else, different equipment.
So
Okay,
just based on my setup here.
Do you think we have enough SEers here where if I just, for the purposes of science and data collection, if I started a GoFundMe so that I could actually get a Ferrari, do you think we could work this in here somehow so we can really see what people think?
How much does a new Ferrari cost? Anybody know?
200,000, 150,000.
But you can get like
Can't be more than 200, right?
You can get a used one like for cheap.
Let's see. A Ferrari car price ranges from 188,000 and can go upwards of 400,000.
Jeez, wow. No one should think I own a Ferrari.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh wow, there's a La Ferrari, which is 1,400,000.
A La Ferrari?
LA Ferrari.
Oh, that's French. Okay. It's a French Ferrari. So yeah. I was going to tell a joke, but I won't.
There's a California T Ferrari, which is 200,000.
I don't know.
I'm going to export. I'm going to upload another version where they actually do give 1% right off the bat. If it was either 0 or 1%.
Oh, see, whoever that person was, and if they're watching this, smart.
Tell me when to unpause.
Okay, I'm going to unpause in 3, 2, 1.
What's it called? Not the process. I guess process of elimination. I have no idea. It's something that I learned in grade school. But yeah, there's a word for it.
If you could like speak as close as you can to the mic.
Yeah.
So if I hypothetically took out a keychain with a Ferrari logo on it, where would your confidence change at all?
I think a little bit.
Yeah.
And you know, that kind of reminds me. Have you ever seen Fear and Loathing?
Yeah.
Yeah, remember that scene? Is that in Fear and Loathing? I think it was, where he has the Playboy tag on his bag, and when he's trying to get into the race, he just sets the bag down and makes sure that the guy sees it, you know? And so that he kind of just automatically assumes that he's with Playboy and not some other magazine. Okay. And so I think it could be like one of those dealies, you know, because that sticks out in my head because I've seen that movie. And
Okay, so just a keychain would move you up how much?
Probably to like a 40.
40.
Yeah.
Okay, so
or
still
more, no, that's wrong. I'd say 60.
60.
At least 60.
You would believe, but very
like is it a
low
keychain
rate.
or a fob?
Like a fob.
Oh, fob? Then yeah, like 90%. Yeah, that's completely different.
90%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because why would you have that?
Why would
Did
I
you
have?
steal someone's Ferrari?
I don't know.
Yeah.
So it would get you to 90% if I just took out the key fob for it.
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
Now, oh man, there's so many other factors now too, because it's also like I like breaking down the fourth wall. Oh, sorry, breaking down the fourth wall here. Like you got a camera set up and stuff like that. You know, obviously, like you're doing something for your podcast or whatever, and so or your YouTube show. So I don't know. It could just be a big hoax.
Could be.
I gotta pause this.
If you were,
is this guy high?
I don't think so. I mean, it's LA, so maybe.
He seems very jittery. But anyhow,
random off the street and you walk up to me and you
probably.
just whipped out your car, would just be like 110%. Yeah, this guy's got a Ferrari because he'd had no reason to do that.
No reason.
Unless he was like trying to fuck you or something. Sorry if I shouldn't say curse. Yeah, unless he's like trying to hit on somebody or whatever. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't allow any swearing on my channel.
So let's just think about some just random person here you meet. If you walked up to them and they took out a Ferrari key fob, you would be how much confident?
With you probably, I would just assume 100%. I think just because it's Los Angeles, we're at Runyon Canyon, and like wealth is abound.
You would just assume 100%.
Yeah, I think I would.
And by 100%, does this mean you could not be mistaken about it?
Okay, no, I wouldn't say that. It'd be like a loose hundred, a loose hundred, I guess.
Loose 100, so
yeah.
like 99.
Yeah, like I could be swayed. You know, I like to keep an open mind. That's the other thing. I try.
So if you found someone who had that key fob, what would it take? That would get you to 99. What extra evidence would you need to lower your confidence, below 50, that they don't actually have?
If you like opened his mouth and he just had like really scraggly, gangly brown teeth and stuff, you know, like something like that, and you're like, "Hey man, I got a Ferrari," and I'll be like, "Ooh, I don't think you have a Ferrari. You don't even have teeth," you know, something like that. Something that like something that showed off their wealth in another way.
Something that showed they're not as wealthy as that key fob.
Okay, this guy's not serious.
Like, you have horrible priorities. You're getting a Ferrari before fixing your teeth.
Okay. So now with the key fob and then with the teeth or some other, let's just say teeth, you're now below 50.
Yeah.
If it actually turned out they actually do own a Ferrari, what evidence would you need
to solidify it?
Yeah, to conclude that.
Make that guy take me for a ride.
Make him take you for a ride?
Absolutely. I would milk that every chance I got.
Okay. So we're from key fob to teeth to a ride. With the ride, where would your confidence be?
Probably at 99, 100. Well, unless I pulled out, I need to see his paperwork. I guess would be like the ultimate, like
there we go.
thing.
So key fob to teeth to a ride and paperwork.
Yeah, that's 100%.
It get you back to 100%.
Yeah, I think so.
And does that mean you still could not be mistaken about it?
I think I wouldn't be able to be mistaken about that. If I saw seal, I would just have to trust the government on that one. But the seal of California is valid. And
okay. At that point, you could not be mistaken.
I don't think so. No. Yeah.
Could it be possible all that could be true, and they still not actually own a Ferrari?
Yes, but there would be a layer of like. I mean, like I said, I like to take things with a grain of salt. I'm sure I'd be like, yeah, sure, but probably not. So deep down inside, I guess I would still like.
Yeah. If all that happened, what would you then extra have to learn to?
Oh my God.
To bring you below 50.
Jesus Christ. I don't know. Something like some guy running down the street going, "Hey, that's my Ferrari."
That's a good. That's a good example. Yeah. That's a good example. Okay, we can leave it there.
Okay.
Okay, I did you guys? Yeah, let me get rid of this. My daughter actually had. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
My daughter actually had a great answer to this Ferrari question, or a great question to ask. And that is, can I phone your mother? Like, that's brilliant. So, because unless the person has pre-planned another older elderly woman to answer the phone, hey, does your son own or daughter own a Ferrari? Like, I thought that was an excellent question.
What if they say, I don't know?
Well, then your confidence would be lowered that they really do own the Ferrari.
If the mother says, I don't know.
Oh, the mother says, I don't know. Then that means, yeah, any son who bought a Ferrari is going to tell their mother. That's just science.
Depends on the mother.
So in that example, I tried to, whatever like end of the confidence scale he was at currently, I wanted to figure out, all right, now what would make him go to the opposite end, or at least up to the above 50 or below 50. And he seemed to do pretty well. He figured out things that could move him. So that's kind of the point.
Have you had anyone yet that give you a very high percentage from the beginning?
Yes. I'm exporting an example now where someone was at 0, and I have another example from today where they started at 100. So I'm exporting an example.
Yeah, let's. I'm very curious to see those.
If we can just fill our time, I can upload them here, and they shouldn't take more than 15 minutes.
That's interesting. Well, that's the whole point of this, right? So I'm curious, here's this guy, he said he's 10%, and you were able to walk him through, and eventually, with relatively minimal effort, how long was that chat there? Maybe like 5 minutes?
About 5 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, he was able to figure out the best possible evidence that, to say if you own it or not. I'm curious if there's more of a struggle to do this with the person who is at 100% from the start.
Maybe. I don't really remember. They're all kind of mashed together in my mind.
A blur.
So we'll kind of be watching them back.
By the end of this, somebody's got to have own a Ferrari.
The reason why I like this Ferrari experiment, whatever you call it, is because when you start thinking about all the ways you could be wrong about, okay, you see a keychain, you see title. If you start thinking through all the reasons why that could not be good evidence for owning a Ferrari, then you can now apply that same reasoning to other deeply held beliefs.
Oh, we lost you there, Reed.
No, he's there. He's just doing a screen share.
This is the upload time.
Okay. Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm also kind of in the debating. So we were talking before, and with Anthony, and he said, this is a good time to go right after you do the Ferrari thing, the Ferrari experiment, to start asking them about, a deeply held belief, God or whatever, and then applying what you've learned from the Ferrari experiment to the God belief. And I'd have to see it. I'd have to see that transition and see how that works out, because I'm
Pizza's here right now.
Pizza's here. We got pizza. Oh, that's so nice. I'm kind of skeptical to see how well that will work, or if just doing the Ferrari experiment by itself is enough.
Enough for what? You think they'll put two together on their own?
No, I don't think they'll put 2 and 2 together on their own, but enough to succeed in the purpose of just getting people to
think,
learn the tools of critical thinking.
Yeah. I guess the real question is, how often do people, it's a gullibility experiment, really.
Yeah, that word was used before as well. The gullibility test.
When you think about all the ways you can be fooled and all the ways you can fool yourself, and you really stop to think about that, it's like, wow, everything that you're so sure about just kind of fizzles.
Watch, Reed's going to start seeing people, he's going to say, I own a Ferrari. They're going to be like, 100%. Then he's going to say, if you give me $100 right now, I can invest it in something and turn it into $10 million in this period of time. Oh, okay.
Brenda is asking me, why do I hate Hangouts? I hate Hangouts because I kind of like have a little bit of a goal for going live. I just don't like, hey, let's just sit and chat. But I like it doing it privately, but not public. But today I thought I would live stream this anyhow because we have nothing planned.
We're not forcing Doug to do this. This is Doug's idea.
Yeah, this is my idea, but I usually don't. In fact, is this the first time I've done this on YouTube? Just hanging out? I think so, with nothing planned.
I think we've done this before, a little while ago.
Oh, we have Cam joining us from New Zealand. I mean, he's from New Zealand, but he's in California now. What's your address?
Why is your name Metanet? Metanet? Oh, sorry. I'm supposed to say that.
Is my mic working?
It is. Did you have that Blue Yeti last time?
Is that your first time using that?
I've used it a couple of times, but not on live streams.
I was actually pricing some yesterday. I think I might go get one again.
What am I doing? Don't mind me. Talk amongst yourselves while I fix everything.
Did you see the
That's
video?
your pizza, Reed.
It's great. Really good. Fresh.
I didn't see it, but it was the Ferrari experiment. Is that right? Was it a successful deployment?
Yeah, seems like it was. Reed's uploading some more right now, so we'll get a taste of people who have. Whoa! So just beat something.
Yeah, me. My mouse is not working.
You said you were feeling punchy tonight, Doug.
A little bit, yeah.
The other important topic of tonight is that there is someone else who is using the Pine prefix in their name. Pine Martin. There's Pine Martin.
And they're Canadian.
And he's Canadian too.
Ozzy's Canadian? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have a rival Pine Canadian YouTube channel.
That would be funny if all Canadians, any sort of like social media handle that they have, or what, it just always starts with Pine.
I really like the fact that I made my channel name Pine Creek. It has nothing to do with religion or atheism. It's just like, it's so pleasant. Nice flowing creek.
Have you ever gone camping out in the Canadian bush?
No, that's silly. We're a civilized society now. We don't need to go into the wilderness.
He has videos of him camping out in the winter, cooking steak and eggs in a tent. Pretty badass.
Yeah, he's got a whole furnace in his tent.
Yeah.
Like a ship that goes out.
Yeah, he put a furnace on a sled and trailed it out into the middle of the woods just to cook some steak and eggs.
So today, what did I do today? I played tennis with my son and I beat him. What's your theory on this? Should you let your own kids win?
Do you? Oh
no.
Oh,
no.
You meant you let your kid. I thought you mean you actually like hit your child, like you beat him.
No, in tennis.
You can let them win points, like when they try extra hard. But no, not the game, unless you suck.
Because my son's very competitive.
Have you heard about the rat experiment where like the dominant rat has to let the submissive rat win at least 30% of the time, or else he won't continue to play?
Yeah, that's my son.
Okay. So at least 30%. That's the answer. Yes to win.
No, Doug doesn't believe in that. those people who require 30% win rate, they just shouldn't be playing tennis. That's the philosophy, right, Doug?
Right. I'm reading comments right now. I'll just agree with everything you say.
Or does that build a competitive spirit? When they actually go out and compete against others for real, they will have such strife in them if they don't reach their certain threshold of competitive success that they will go to whatever means necessary to achieve that.
I have why am I getting an echo? Someone needs headphones. Well, you all got headphones.
I don't hear an echo.
Okay, you guys think you're smart, right? Pete, you're smart, right?
What's the difference between think and know?
Oh, thank you, Ozzy. Cam's heard this. I asked him this last night, but I don't think Reed and Pete have heard this. And people in the chat, let's see how smart you are. 3 businessmen are going on a trip, and they need a place to sleep at night, and so they go to this hotel. The innkeeper says, I only have 1 room left, but you guys are welcome to share it if you want. They said, sure. How much? Innkeeper says $30. So each of the businessmen gives $10. They go up to the room, and the innkeeper's feeling a little guilty, saying, that's really a bad room. Calls over the bellhop and says, here's 5 singles. I charge too much for this room. Go return it to these guys. And the bellhop says, sure. He's on his way up to the room. And he's thinking, 5 singles, 3 guys. How am I going to divide this up? He goes, I know what I'll do. I'll just put 2 in my pocket and give them each $1 back. So that's what the bellhop does. So now here's the riddle. Here's the question. They each paid $30 for the room. They each paid $10 each. They each got $1 back, so they paid $9 each, right? They paid 10. They each got $1 back. $9. 9 times the 3 men is 27. The bellhop kept 2. That's 29. Where's the missing $1? Dun dun dun.
Wait, he gave back 5 singles, so that means there's $25 left. So let's. He kept 2 singles, $3 back. That's 28. So I don't see.
Raid, you're muted.
There's $2 left.
There's 35 total dollars in play, right?
No,
and the guy bellhop gets 2, so that's 33. I'm confused.
No, so they each gave $10. The room cost $30. The innkeeper refunds them $5 in singles. The doorman or the bellhop keeps 2 of those singles. So the room costs $25, not $30. They end up getting $3 back. That's $28, and then the $2 are in the bellhop's pocket. So where's the inconsistency?
No, they paid $10. They paid $10 each initially. That's no question, right? And they each got $1 back. That's no question. So they each paid $9. And there's 3 of them. 9 times 3 is 27. The bellhop kept 2. That's 29. Where's the missing $1?
They didn't pay. Wait, say that last part again. We went through that really fast.
They each paid $9 for the room in the end, right? 9 times 3 is 27. The bellhop kept 2. That's 29. Where's the missing $1? Because they started with 30. It's just magic, Pete. Some things in life you just have to accept as magical.
No, this is easy to figure out. Just give me a moment.
By the way, everybody on YouTube Live, Science Pete has a PhD in microbiology, and he can't figure this out.
I feel like I've heard this. This riddle before. I'm just trying to figure out where the lapse is. They each,
There's just some order of operations things.
yeah, exactly, absolutely.
Order of operations things.
I can't.
What are you, an apologist? Like, speak plain English here. Where's the problem?
They didn't pay 9. If they get no, because you're doing 3. How many people in the room? 3 people in the room. There's 3 people in the room. Is that what you said?
Yeah, 3 people in the room. They each paid $10 initially. They each got $1 back. So that's 9. There's 3 of them. 9 times 3 is 27. Last time I checked. The bellhop has 2. 27 and 2 is 29. But they start with 30. There's a missing $1. Just magically disappeared. Where'd it go?
Just give me a second to work through this. It's gonna bother. I will be able. I'm confident I'll be able to figure this out. Not Reed. Cam, what are your thoughts?
Well, Cam knows. You talked about it with Doug last night.
Yeah, I don't think I'm allowed to comment.
You're just you're throwing us off. This is all a ploy.
Yeah,
Following the narrative might not be the best strategy.
that's what I was not doing before. So if the room is $30, they're refunded 25. They're refunded $5. That means the room is actually $25. There's 5 singles left, right?
This is an anchoring bias.
So they paid $25. 25 divided by 3 is. Let me just pull up the calculator here for a second, just so we can get the right amount.
Calculator.
Yes.
This is my calculator, Pete.
There you go. They each paid $8.3 for the room. Oh, sorry, $8.33 for the room.
Correct.
Right. So the bellhop has $5 in his pocket. He gives back. Wait, no, sorry. No, hold on. I'm screwing up the order already. Room is $25.
Pete, don't look at the YouTube chat because they've already answered this and got it. So, don't look. And they probably don't have PhDs.
My PhD is not in math, by the way.
Oh, yeah. It was my understanding there'd be no math this evening. Yeah, someone in chat already said it's a red herring to add it up like. That's really loud, Reed. It's a red herring to say 9 times 3 plus 2.
Right.
The best way to explain it is to physically ask, where's the money? So there's $25 in the till. There's $3 in each of the 3 men in their pockets, and then there's 2 in the bellhop's pocket. So there's no money missing. That's for certain. But why is it that when I frame it that way, when I frame it as 9 times 3 is 27 plus 2, 29, why is it wrong to frame it that way? Because it sure sounds like it's okay to frame it that way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't, because.
But this riddle shows how flawed the human brain is. So flawed. Because it just makes so much sense that 9 times 3 is 27 plus 2, 20. There is a missing $1, but yet it's because, and Reed, you were right. It's an order of operations thing that you're going backwards. It's how did Leon explain it yesterday, Cam? That if, let's say the bellhop said, "Oh, it's only $10 for the room," and he gave the bellhop $20, and the bellhop kept 2 and gave them each 6 back. Now they've each paid $3 for the room. 3 times 3 is 9. The bellhop has 8. 2. So 11. Now we got $9 missing. No, $19 missing or something like that. It's just ridiculous to count it that way. So the way to look at it is physically, where's the money?
Right.
And
but you're saying, but the issue is that you're dividing it up in a way that's not equal to the number of people. in the end. So yeah, there's $2 left, but that's $2 divided over 3 people. Like you can't split the $2 over the. So I know, but you were saying that there's 27, right? Wait, what was the end of that? There's 9 times 3 is 27.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then 28, 29.
Mm-hmm. But the point is,
That's
the
$2.
30 and the 29 really have nothing to do with each other anymore because the room is no longer 30; it's 25. That's the issue.
Mm.
But anyhow,
So there's 25 in the till,
3 in the pockets,
3 back to the men,
and
then 2 to the bellhop.
exactly.
So I have a highly skeptical version of the Ferrari experiment.
First of all, there's a question
in the chat.
There's a question in the chat. Dan asked me something. Let me find it, Dan. Where is it? Something about shouldn't we be optimists? Can you retype it, Dan? I think his question was, let's say there's a truth out there that's just not palatable. Maybe it's better to believe things that are not true in those cases. For example, I don't know, Dan, if that was your question, but I think free will is one of them. And so if it's true that we have no free will, compatibilism is wrong, we're completely deterministic, is it best?
Oh no, compatibilism does hold that determinism is true.
Okay.
Or at least if it were true, then it wouldn't be incompatible with free will.
But if there's some people in this world who might live their life in a negative way, if they knew that they were 100% determined, is it best not to tell them? I think that's what Dan was asking.
Yeah, I think this gets to the distinction between what I call instrumental rationality versus epistemic rationality. So you can divide the question of what is appropriate to believe on the basis of evidence versus what is pragmatic to believe on the basis of evidence. And now most people, like in the skeptical community and probably the SE community, and I think atheists in general, they have the attitude that what we believe epistemically should override what is instrumental to believe or what is pragmatic to believe. So they hold that you should never have a belief, that you shouldn't believe things solely for the purpose of the consequences. Yeah, I think that's a good question to ask.
This was Dan's exact question. We have an innate bias called optimism bias. This is when we believe a better outlook of a situation despite a bad outlook based on statistics. Should we be optimists despite truth?
No. Next question.
I tend to think. I tend to think that you it's difficult to demonstrate to me that you can't both know what is really true, but still act as if it's not. So, for example, it's demonstrated that people who have overconfidence can have like better outcomes in like social circumstances. But like if you know that you are being overconfident, but you are regardless still like practicing that overconfidence, is that something that you shouldn't do? Is that okay? Is it bad epistemically? Like it seems as though you can kind of practice overconfidence even though you know you shouldn't be that confident, and still like reap the benefits of the practical outcomes, while at the same time still like knowing epistemically that like you're not as good at doing a particular task as what you're portraying yourself as doing.
Hold on, before you go back, I want to go back to the $30 here for a second because I figured out what's wrong here. So I was right following the money in the beginning when everything added up. It was normal, but you had a false statement in there. That's why this question is wrong. You said that, well, they each got $1 back. 9 times 3 is 27. They each paid $9 in the end, but they did not pay $9. This is what the part that you didn't elaborate on. They did not pay $9. You lied to us. So that they actually paid $8.33 each.
That's right.
So that's the issue with the problem, is that you made a false claim.
Do you forgive me,
which is
Pete?
why. No, but that's a whole other problem. But anyways, yes, that's the issue of that riddle, is that you're falsely saying that they paid $9 for the room when in fact they did not, because the room was reduced to $25, so they ended up only paying $8.33 for it.
Dan gave an example. If you have cancer, which has let's say a 1% survival rate.
I don't agree with that, Pete.
Okay.
So you are right, but only because of the fact that the bellhop ended up with some money that the till didn't end up having, right? But if you look at it, sorry, I might be wrong about this, and I might be making a big mistake, but if you look at it from the perspective of starting with a $10 note in your wallet and ending up with a $1 note in your wallet, then technically you did pay $9, right?
But they didn't pay $9 for the room.
Yes, that's
right.
Yes.
That is right.
That's the important point. They paid $9, but they paid $8.33 for the room and a 66-cent tip.
Right. There is extra money hanging out there, but that money is not towards the room.
Exactly.
So that's where this riddle is tricky, because like you said, you got to follow the money, but the statement that 9 times 3 is 27. Where's the extra dollar, et cetera? That's
okay. Dan gave an example of the question that's really important about optimism.
Reed, did you want to revisit the $30?
No.
Go around the circle.
And I think Cam already answered it. But if you have cancer and it only has a 1% survival rate, should you be optimistic despite the truth? I think what Cam was saying earlier, Dan, is you can't really lie to yourself if you really, really, really know or are confident in that you have a 1 out of 100 chance of surviving. The rest is up to you. Like, if you can be optimistic with those odds, all the power to you. But you will die.
Probably.
But
there has been, there are particular examples that show that when you act with like overconfidence, for example, it can produce better outcomes. Say like in social circumstances. I mean, in the case of cancer, and that's probably not really going to help you. But in the case of like being in like a bar, like there's a difference. Like you might go into the bar knowing that like your
let me translate.
rate.
Cam said bar. Okay, go ahead.
Bar, or however you say it. But if you go into a pub or a drinking establishment, which has men or women that you're attracted to, if it is the case that if you act with confidence, you can increase your chances over your base rate, then yeah, it might be rational to do so, even if I mean, I don't know.
in the cancer scenario, I don't think you're being optimistic as much as you're just having come to terms with your situation. If you know that the most likely you're going to die, you're just optimistic or satisfied with the time that you have left. You can't really, your chances of changing the outcome are slim to nothing, but just It is what it is. But there is, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I think I know why Dan's asking this. I'm going to read into his question here. I think that when certain theists say that, well, without my belief, I don't have meaning and purpose, and my life would be terrible. I actually think it's true in some cases for them. And so if they were convinced out of their belief for whatever reason, their confidence in their belief has gone down, they're now stuck in a situation where they are truly unhappy, but they can't force themselves to go back to the belief. You hear what I'm saying? And I actually think this happens more times than we think. And it causes me great discomfort. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think to get to the bottom of it is to look at values from the perspective of like a hierarchy. So if it's true that for you, your highest value is having true beliefs, for example, having beliefs that line up with reality, or having confidences in, what is true, and those confidences being accurate. Now, if that's what you value the most, then you might be like totally okay with maybe making somebody really uncomfortable in a social circumstance where you challenge them on a belief that they hold, rather than just ignoring a false statement that they make. Or maybe you will choose to believe that you have no afterlife, even though it might make you unhappy that your life will end and you truly will pass out of existence. But if it's the case that you value more your social interactions with people, and you value more like maybe your relationships with other humans over what is true, it might be the case that you are just happy to you're happy to ignore some false statement that somebody else makes for the benefit of social cohesion, or maintaining a friendship, or maybe you will or whatever. You can imagine the examples, but I think that it comes down like to a hierarchy of values.
How often do you guys do that? Do you go to a party, someone says something that you're like 99% confidence false? Do you say something, or you just keep quiet?
Depends on what it is that they say. If it's something that's, I think, I've seen this before.
Yeah, have you seen this?
Explain it to us, Reed.
Like,
I haven't seen it before.
Let me zoom in a bit more. Basically, our beliefs can be think of as, on the y-axis is our merit beliefs, our beliefs that relate to their accuracy, how they align with reality. But then we also have beliefs that on the x-axis that align with how they give us social value, or like social status. So we have like beliefs we hold just because they're true, and we like those, but also beliefs that give us a lot of social value and social status. So it would be great if we could get them in that red circle where they're both true and they give us high social status or social value, because we need that. Like, if so much of what beliefs do is like signal tribal loyalty a lot of the time, and with that, it's good to have those types of beliefs as well.
You really want to be in the top right part of that circle.
Mm-hmm. It would be great if It would be great if nothing but true beliefs were socially valuable, but that's just not the case.
Yeah, and maybe it's a false dichotomy to say that like you value one or the other. Like maybe there's a nice middle ground, but in my experience, you are often forced to make decisions about what do I value more. Like, do I value more like social cohesion, and what will be helpful to me socially or helpful to the people around me, or do I value like what is true? And I spent a long time in my life valuing very strongly what was true. I still do, and I can't really escape that. But I did kind of have a bit of a flip recently where I started to care a little bit more about at least pay more attention to like what are the social costs or what are the pragmatic costs of my own life to taking that approach.
Right, yeah. There's some trade-off there sometimes. For sure. Leon's in the chat.
Yeah, he's bitter that a chart beat him out on a spot in this appear.
We can go to your room, Leon.
No.
You paid for the premium, right?
Well, not when yeah. It's a big hassle for me because I'm streaming, but
Isn't your screen sharing thing just the area?
Hang on. Yeah, Leon, open up your room. I'm sure everybody would love to see cousin Leon.
I would.
But Leon, if you're going to come in, you got to perform for us, like dance among
He's also
dance.
he's got to have his shirt off.
No.
That sounds like it could be a movie, like the title of the movie, Cousin Leon, like Uncle Buck.
I'd like to see his thoughts on this next Ferrari example. That should be interesting.
Okay, so Leon, if you're listening, get in your room, put the link down. I'm going to keep this live stream going and see if I can make a seamless transition.
Leon, can you post your link in the Facebook chat? I don't remember it.
Yeah, I don't have it either.
I do.
Can you post it in the Facebook chat?
Okay. So when you guys take off, go in his room. I'll meet you there. This is why I hate hangouts.
Let's see.
Be patient with us, everyone. Okay, so now I need to close that. Close that. Go in there. Oh, wow. It worked.
Did it work?
I think so.
Kind of.
I'm watching YouTube.
I now have 2 more Ferrari examples we can watch if we need to.
Yeah, this did work.
Cam, you're not audible.
Still not.
If he's on a Mac, if he presses the mute button on that thing, it does some weird system settings where you have to go into the audio mixer settings and turn it off manually, the mute button.
Yeah. Macs are bad.
Still can't hear you.
Yeah, go to the MIDI audio MIDI setup. Click on blue.
How about now?
There you go.
Cool. Yeah, that's weird. That happened last night too, Reed.
Weird.
Pine Creek, what is your view on reason and emotions? Do you think they oppose each other or do they complement each other? I think emotions are highly overrated. Just ask Cam.
I disagree thoroughly.
Where is that question?
In the YouTube chat.
Trying to.
I think it depends on the emotion.
Patrick, what is your view on reason and emotions? I don't think so there are people who are skewed towards one more than the other, right? So you have people who are hyper emotional and really don't engage the rational center of their brain very often. And there are people who are hyper reasonable and don't utilize their emotional centers. So an example of that would be someone who sees that life is just not worth living, but doesn't, and just says, "All right, I'm just gonna like axe myself now because it's just no point in being here," but doesn't think about how their absence could affect their loved ones, or other sort of emotional reasons why sticking around might be a good thing. So there is a conflict between the two, but the two of them can work in concert with each other to enhance the fitness of the individual, probably.
Yeah, I think that there's different levels of like developedness that you can have with respect to both emotion and like rationality or intelligence. And I think that underdeveloped, and maybe this is just like tautological or like true by definition, but I think there's like a certain type of undevelopedness of both areas that can be problematic in one's life. And I think that you should try to develop both areas in conjunction.
Is it like sociopaths are said to be very emotionally intelligent? So there's that whole thing where you can recognize emotion and understand its ease of being manipulated, and then you can use that to do your own, what you would consider your own reasonable bidding, or something that purely fits your own selfish needs. So there's that.
What do you think, Reed?
I think reason and emotion are intrinsically linked. There's like Descartes was wrong. Reason is driven mostly by emotions.
Now, how do you explain me, Reed?
It's just
I don't think you appear from the outside as you think you appear from the inside.
Don't you analyze me, Cam.
You're muted.
Yeah, you're muted.
I said, don't you analyze me, Cam. I think when you have emotions, you need to stuff them firmly into that hole, that empty spot in your heart. And when that spot gets full, you just stuff a little more. I think everybody should do that.
I think
you open up a new compartment.
Practicing both and recognizing both, though, like Cam said, are very important. And you can practice utilizing both in a constructive way. So you can use emotion or passion for something to do something that is extremely reasonable and beneficial, and use the emotion as the driver to achieve that. So yeah.
Yeah, I tend to think that for most humans, at least, there's really no way to constructively avoid our emotional lives. So if like your strategy in quote unquote dealing with emotion is to avoid it, I think that's really unconstructive. I think inevitably, as a human being, you will have emotions, and unless you learn to, constructively experience them, then they will negatively affect you. They'll manifest in ways that you didn't intend.
Well, people also who tend to avoid emotions end up doing things that aren't necessarily reasonable. So there's like some sort of compensation feedback occurring there where because the emotions haven't been met, reason centers get thrown out of whack because they depend on the emotional health of the individual in order for them to work, optimally.
Right, and like with what Reed was saying earlier, so much of our reasoning is like post hoc, or it's like after the fact, and we can be very driven by emotion. Like I think it's like our most powerful driver, and so even if like you cultivate like a incredibly strong virtue of reasoning, that may be all undone by an uncultivated virtue of like constructive expression of emotion.
Are you guys done with the fluffy talk yet?
Just for you, Doug, I plan to go on for another minute-long monologue.
Sorry, did Doug say that he needed some fluffing? Because I'm back.
Where's your face, Leon?
Can you not see me?
No.
Are we delayed?
No, you're just
Just a black screen.
Oh, let me.
That's racial, Reed. Oh, Leon.
It's a screen of color.
Oh, did it work? Hey, it worked.
Oh, yay! Okay.
I went from Ethernet to the intertubes, the Wi-Fi, the high fidelity.
Do we get widescreen in Leon's room? This is cool.
Because I am not a cheap bastard.
Oh, okay.
You saying I am?
The premium
Hey,
appear.
Doug, I'm not saying things. There are people out there saying that Pine Creek is a cheap bastard. I'm not one of them. Those are impolite people saying that Pine Creek is a cheap bastard. I'd like to go on record as saying I am not saying that Pine Creek is a cheap bastard.
You missed before, Leon, that there is pine competition out there. And that there's also a pine Martin, also Canadian.
What's the conversion rate between Bitcoin and Pine Points?
They are definitely not one-to-one.
It depends where you are in the bubble.
Sorry, I feel like I may have railroaded a intellectual conversation.
Well, I was going to play the Ferrari clip, but I don't think it's going to work because you guys won't be able to hear it.
We can hear it if we have the YouTube up.
Yeah, but Leon doesn't have the YouTube up.
We could watch together. Somebody could put it in the chat.
Just go to Doug's YouTube channel.
He's on a little
watch
phone.
the live.
What are you watching on, Leon?
He's got his
Mac.
laptop, right?
Yeah, 13-inch.
Can you
just
open
go to Doug's.
Leon refuses to go to my YouTube channel. Every time he does it, he just emotion of jealousy arises, so he can't bring himself to go there. Because then he'll have to flip windows and
What is it? Post hoc, ergo hoc. The fact that I don't go there does not necessarily imply any of what Doug just said. It could just be that I have better things to do with my time. Although my presence in this room would dispute that or contradict that.
Okay, Leon, go to my YouTube channel. I'm pressing play, and you'll hear it.
What?
All right.
I own a Ferrari.
You own a Ferrari.
Okay, Leon, go to my YouTube channel. I'm pressing play.
What is your
and you'll hear it.
confidence that is true? Saying a scale from 0 to 100? Where
Just that statement alone?
Yeah, what's your confidence that is true?
Well, having met you just 5 seconds ago, I could believe you, but at the same time, if I knew you on a deeper level, more than 5 seconds, I would ask for like evidence.
Yeah, so
I would ask for
anyways,
like,
I'm on
photo,
YouTube. I can hear it.
Of you
Keep
driving
going.
it, or what model, or when'd you get it, and
and why Ferrari and not a Porsche or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it'd be 50-50.
It'd be 50-50 starting out.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty good. Pretty good.
I would not believe you.
You would not believe me.
You wouldn't not.
So, what evidence would you need to raise your confidence?
Do you have a photo on your social media page? Do you have a video of you driving it?
Okay.
Do you have car keys?
Yeah.
See, you guys are like in the interview with me. Why don't we just like all hover around and
I'll put out hypothetical pieces of evidence. And
Okay.
And then I'll see where would your confidence raise if I did that. So if I took out a key with a Ferrari on it, Ferrari whatever fob keychain thing, where would your confidence be then?
I'd be pretty confident. You know, I'd move it up probably a quarter, if not all the way 4/5, 80%. I don't think I'd speculate too much any further, but the only thing is maybe is it a temporary Ferrari? Is it, or you know, did you recently start owning it?
So
Things like that.
if I brought it out and it was actually the case where I don't own a Ferrari, what evidence would you then need to lower your confidence that I do own a Ferrari?
So you take your car keys out.
Yeah, if I had a car key with a Ferrari on it, that would raise it up to like 80%.
So
if you were mistaken about that,
if you didn't bring out the car keys,
if I did bring out the car,
gotcha.
even if that was true,
yeah,
and you're 80%, like you could be mistaken even at 80%, right?
Right.
So then, what would you need to see to put your confidence at the accurate spot?
I don't know, maybe like a driver's license or something, like some sort of registration associated with the car. It could be your dad's or something like that. That could probably reduce my confidence.
So I show you the key.
Can we pause a second? I want
with a photo of me in it. Where would your confidence be?
I want to make a critique here. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, it'll pause.
So you're at the part where you're saying you take out the key and you're asking him, though, even if I have the key, what would bring your confidence down that I did not own the Ferrari? I would reword that saying, you know, how does me, or just ask them, I want the way I envision this is that you say as little as possible to still get them to think about these pieces of evidence and how they relate to you owning the Ferrari, right? So if you said, okay, well, he says, what if I put out a key? He said, oh yeah, you got the key, that put me up to 80%. So what if you just said, so how does me having the key relate to me owning a Ferrari? And then they might give another, they would make that allow them to, their brain to make that connection and say, oh, well, if you have a key, you know, that means that you can get into the car. So say, okay, so I have the key, I'm able to get in a car, we have it in the parking lot. How does me being able to have the key and get into a Ferrari relate to this, to the statement that to the claim that I own a Ferrari? And I would keep like reiterating that and allow them to kind of work through it, as opposed to asking them, well, how could we falsify this? Or how, you want them to see that they're not valuing, or they're overvaluing the evidence that you're presenting to them. You understand what I'm saying?
I don't know if that'll work, though. It just, I don't know.
Why not ask, or why not make the statement that this person's trying to deceive you every step of the way? So whenever I say, I have a key to a Ferrari, assume I'm deceiving you.
But what I don't like about that is I'm trying to make this mimic as much of what it would look like if they said, okay, I believe in God, what could we do to falsify that? If you sit there and say, oh, well, someone is trying to deceive you that God exists, that's going to be very hard for them to even accept that claim that you're making. So I want to mimic it as much as possible to what you would do if they were to say, I have a God belief, and because you would say, well, you have a God belief, but how does and they say, "Oh, what evidence for that being true?" And they would say, the Bible, and you would say, "Well, how does what the Bible say relate to the truth of your God being real or something?" That's sort of the question
So
that we use for that.
Are you saying like the Ferrari experiment is to relate to God, and that like if someone says, "I believe because of eyewitnesses," you're wanting them to think about how maybe that might not be true?
Absolutely.
Wow. Genius.
I never really took the Ferrari thing to be relating to God in any way. I guess there is some kind of analogy there, but
Well, it doesn't. It's actually supposed to not be a God thing. It's supposed to be something that is completely emotionally detached. We're talking about emotion and reason, and the reason you use the Ferrari is
What did you just say? Emotionally detached?
Yes. Yes, I know. That's you on it every day. But the reason for using the Ferrari is because there's no emotional attachment to it, and it allows the reasoning centers of your brain to take over. But I would think the goal of this experiment is to allow them with their own faculties walk themselves into the process of critical thinking. So if you sit there and say, okay, I have a key and you're up to 80%, but how would you what other way can we think about this? How would you, it's almost like giving them the answers to the test in a way. And I would rather just continue them to drill down on, well, how does me having a key to a Ferrari, how is that evidence for me owning the Ferrari? And just let them pause and just...
But Pete, I know exactly what Leon's thinking right now, and what Leon wants to say but can't because he's talking to his lovely wife, is that why are you treating people like children? Why don't you just say, you know what? Can you just, for the next 10 minutes, have the attitude that you couldn't care less about the outcome of your belief? And now let's look at the evidence together. Because that's really what the Ferrari experiment's doing.
Right, but it's not realistic. So they would never... So the goal is for them to gain the critical thinking toolkit from this experiment and be able to apply it to more deeply held beliefs.
I don't think that's... If that is the strategy, I suspect it won't work, because I suspect more they will bring to the table what critical thinking toolkit they have that they are comfortable or capable of applying in this domain. I don't think that you teach them anything from this, or at least I think that, like, if the goal is to teach, that's a very big goal. It's a hard thing to learn in a quick space of time.
But I'm thinking you can use logic here to kind of get them to where they need to be. So if you pull out a key, let's just say they say, "Oh, I'm at 10% just by you saying I own a Ferrari." Say, "Oh, I pull out the key. Oh, I'm 80% now." Okay. Then you say, "Well, how does me having a key to a Ferrari, how does that relate to evidence for me owning a Ferrari?" And just let them think about it. And they might say something like, "Oh, well, if you have a key, that means, how did you get that key? You must have purchased that Ferrari." And you could say, "Is me having a key to a Ferrari evidence for purchasing a Ferrari?" And say, "Oh, no, well, I mean, I'd have to, know that you purchased the Ferrari somehow." I say, "Oh, well, so the key is not good evidence for me owning a Ferrari. So what other evidence would be better?" And I would think just walking them through it that way. So you can catch them in their assumptions and let them see that their assumptions on something are incorrect given the limited evidence that you're giving them.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think epistemically that's the good thing to do. It's unclear to me, though, whether or not in context of the Ferrari experiment, you can translate that into one of their deeply held beliefs.
I still like the game-like nature of it, of like going back and forth between above 50 and below 50, and even and including all that's led up to that point as well. Like no evidence has changed, you're just getting more evidence and then you're switching positions. That seems interesting to me. Is that helpful?
I think it's the unknown in this. So is by them going back and forth on their scale, or by them walking through the scale and analyzing the value of the different pieces of evidence that are presented to them, what we don't know yet is which method of this is best at them realizing the value of critical thinking. Because they can go back and forth and say, oh, yeah, was that 80? And then you go, okay, well, but then are they, at the end of that, are they going to say, you know what, I should have asked for the bill of sale from the beginning, because that would be the best piece of evidence in the end. So I don't know if that's what they realize or not.
So there was an example a while ago, I think it may have been with Anthony Magnabosco, where he did this experiment. And the person pointed out that for them, what would be most practical, or at least most in line with the way that they come to learn things in an everyday context, is actually a repeated exposure to the person having the Ferrari. And even though, I don't think that it's possible people watching the video didn't really see that as being that valuable, but to me it was when we come to terms with things that seem improbable, it actually is mostly by way of repeated exposure. And I think that is one of the most effective ways. Things that we prior considered unlikely we don't tend to come to those beliefs by way of a bill of a title, by the state of California or whatever, demonstrating, the most fundamental concrete proof of the claim being true. But instead it's by accumulated evidence of things that would be wholly unexpected when you take them all collected together. So the way in which we find out that people love us, or something like that, tends to be over a large amount of accumulated experience of common things that each individually might only constitute a small amount of evidence, but collectively constitute a very large
data points over time.
Exactly.
So that would be an interesting piece of evidence to throw into their read, is to ask, well, what if you saw me come here every day to this park that we're at, and every day, or you were here every day over the past month, and you saw me every day outside with the Ferrari.
Yeah,
we could sort of simulate the repeated exposure to read with the Ferrari and see if that has any effect.
Yeah, someone from one of the 4 conversations I had today about this mentioned repeatability, or some type of seeing it over and over again at some point. I don't know who it was.
Since we haven't seen all of them yet, did all of them at least mention something about your physical, your appearance, the relation of your appearance and to you having a Ferrari?
I think so. Yeah.
Because even
or at least my setup and just other stuff around. Yeah.
Yeah, because even Anthony's stuff. Actually, Anthony had one where I think she said, "Well, you don't look like you would have a Ferrari." And then he said, "Oh, well, what if I came out here in a suit?" She's like, "Oh, I'd be even more skeptical then." So that was interesting. But anyways, okay, we can continue.
Remember that one as well because, and then I
But
think she
she-
may have expanded on it by mentioning how, often people who, are really wealthy dress down.
Right. Someone in a suit might be just trying to show off, a status that is higher than what they really are, or something like that. But she was also, that woman was, from the beginning, was like bill of sale. Like there was just no, she
was quite clever, if I remember correctly. With the repeatability thing, I would point out though that as an analogy to God, a lot of folks who believe in God really do feel they have this type of repeatable exposure to something that they, for them constitutes evidence for God. So it might be in the form of this thing that they call a personal relationship, or, to us, that seems like an improbable claim, but to them, like this experience that they're having with what they think is God really does feel like God, and it feels unexpected on any other hypothesis, and it's over and over and over again. So some of these folks, they literally have spent like years and years and years of their life, week in and week out, feeling like they're having communications in a relationship with a deity. And so for us to try to dispel that conception within the context of a potentially 5-minute conversation is just absurd. Like, and even questioning the methods like that they use to like assess that evidence, like it's so difficult to have an effect, because for them it's literally like you and I having repeated exposures to conversing with one another and using that to conclude that we exist. Which, of course, like it's going to be very difficult for Reed to come along and convince me that no, Pete doesn't really exist, despite the fact that I've actually conversed with him on, many occasions. And that's the way that these people feel. And I think we need to really come to grips with that when talking with them.
I thought, and another interesting data set out of this, I think it would be cutting a lot of the experiment out. But just to make the claim, I own a Ferrari, tell me where you are on that, 0 to 100, and then just go right to the God claim.
We have some questions.
Sure.
Currently, the nuns are 20% in the United States. 10 years from now, don't say it out loud yet. Count of 3. What is your prediction? What is your prediction of the percentage nuns in the United States of America 10 years from now? It's currently at 20%. Get a number in your head.
20% of what? The population are nuns?
N-O-N-E-S, yes. Get a number in your head 10 years from now. Okay, I got mine.
Wait, no, we're talking like nuns, like religious nuns? Catholic nuns?
N-O-N-E. They don't believe in anything.
Such a played out joke. Just stop.
Okay, you got a number? 1,
Yes.
2, 3. 34%.
30%.
25.
33.
25.
That was in the high 30s someplace.
There you go.
Oh, you're so optimistic.
You said 10 years?
10 years.
10 years.
Well, this kind of will feed into this. There's a lot of thoughts and prayers going around right now, but there's a lot of your thoughts and prayers aren't doing anything. What effect do you think current events will have towards moving people away from things like praying and all that stuff?
Well, I can think of very easily things that could happen in the United States that would cause people to become more religious. For example, Yellowstone Park blowing up. I tell you, that'd be great for Christianity.
That's kind of like the there's no atheists in a foxhole type of argument, though.
Yeah, I guess. But I still think that
Well, I don't think Doug is saying that it makes it more likely that God exists. I think he's saying that it, pragmatically would cause more people to
Pray and stuff.
hold faith.
Right, but that's my point. There's no atheists in a foxhole. So if Yellowstone blows up, a big chunk of the country is going to lose their lives. Most people will just go default to God because they think that this is going to be the last day that they are going to be on Earth.
What percentage of the nuns is in California?
So we have someone in the chat who is I'm not sure if Anathipopo, is that how you say your name?
I just want to point out, I was the most reserved in my prediction within 10 years.
What'd you say?
I said 30%.
No, Leon said 25.
Oh, 25. Oh, congratulations, Leon. I think it's good to be reserved like that. I think that you guys are probably overestimating.
$1.
A person named Nathapo says that he or she has come to question the Bible and is feeling stupid right now that he or she has believed it for so long. Any advice?
Shouldn't feel stupid.
Don't feel stupid.
I was a believer for a majority of my life, and it's just a part of my life that I was raised into and I grew out of, just like you grow out of old clothes that don't fit anymore. Although some people do look back at the things that they wore when they were younger and embarrassed about that, but
it is kind of funny because clothes is used as an analogy within the New Testament for our old body versus our new resurrection body, right? So
Nathapo is a female. She says that she feels duped, and I totally get that. And you know what? I would just say that accept it. I mean, accept that emotion. I'm going to take the advice of my peers here. Just let yourself fall into that realization that, hey, maybe I was duped, and but we all are duped once in a while. She said that her initial movement or doubt was due to Bart Ehrman, actually, which speaks volumes. There's a reason why Christians, like the conservative apologist types, they really don't like Bart Ehrman. He is effective at what he does.
She says something, why would the pastors know and not tell the truth? At least in my situation, I think my priest wholeheartedly believed the stuff that he was saying.
There's a famous quote, it's very hard to convince someone of the falsity when their income relies on its truth. I'm bastardizing the paraphrasing, but pastors themselves have that inherent bias to believe it because it's linked to their whole livelihood, their culture, their identity, their belonging. So I don't think there's that many pastors who are willfully deceiving anyone. They're also deceiving themselves.
I don't know, Leon. I tend to disagree with that one. I think
I think in proportion, Leon is.
There are definitely scam artists.
Scam artists, yeah.
No, I mean, there's pastors that are going to go up behind the pulpit tomorrow, and they're going to talk about things that they know arguments and reasons against what they're about to say, and they will purposely not say it because why should they, right? Their job is to raise confidence, make people feel good about their belief, but they know they prepared for their sermon. They've done a little bit of reading. They had to have stumbled on stuff that makes them uncomfortable, but they're not going to say that to their flock.
But do you think Ken Ham thinks that evolution is real?
Well, Ken Ham's IQ is 80 at best, so you got to kind of.
Doug did the research on the characteristics of different people and their IQs. So Doug is the resident expert now on.
But
We
there's a
did
guy.
actually have this conversation last night.
But there's a guy who openly acknowledges that there is a contradictory idea to his and actively goes out and debates it. So he's actually exposing his followers to evolution. You know, it's kind of like we used to talk about Dr. Tom praying for you all the time. I said, that's great. Dr. Tom is asking his 37 children to pray for Doug not to be an atheist anymore. Every day they're praying, please God, please don't make Doug an atheist. Dr. Tom is doing more to expose his children to atheism than Doug will ever be able to in a lifetime.
Although with Ken Ham, the unfortunate reality is that not only, well, first and foremost, he doesn't understand evolution and so can't convey accurate information about it.
Doug was talking to some, I think might have even been a biologist or a scientist, some Christian who was also a scientist.
Sygart.
And Doug asked the question. Doug asked that person the question. Well, let's just hypothetically imagine that the Bible, you didn't even know about the Bible, or the Bible wasn't true. Would you believe in evolution? And the person was honest enough to say yes. Like, that person knew in a fair, unbiased analysis of scientific evidence for evolution versus Ken Ham's website and all that there's way more evidence from secular scientists showing that evolution is true. But this person is saying, but I believe the Bible. And if the Bible is true, evolution can't be true. So their brain, there's parts of their brain that truly understand there's overwhelming evidence for evolution, but they are weighting their belief in the Bible as sort of trumping all that.
Right, but I would also add that eventually, as they're inadvertently being exposed to all that evidence, every time Ken Ham goes up and debates, a scientist on evolution, he is exposing them to that evidence, his followers to that evidence. Now, they might not believe it right away, but because they're being exposed to it, there may be a point later in their life where that evidence that they were exposed to resurrects itself in a way that is more convincing to them than was immediately in that moment when Ken Ham was in that debate.
Yeah. Yep.
But I actually support apologists in a way, because whenever they make arguments against certain things or for certain things, it causes people to start looking stuff up for themselves. And that's good. But my fear is so many people are born and raised in a bubble that says, oh no, don't you dare watch the Pine Creek YouTube channel, because he will lead you astray. He's going to lead you to hell. Don't watch that Read Nice Wonder guy. Like, he's going to put bad thoughts in your head. And those are the dangerous
What do you think?
people.
What do you think Reed's real last name is? I know his stage name is Nice Wonder, but what do you suspect his actual last name is?
Dick.
Oh, jeez.
Reed Dick. It's a Mennonite.
Me? What's the opposite of wonder?
Indifference.
Knowing?
Indifference.
So,
Indifference.
Yeah.
Okay, so his real name is Mean Indifference. It's Reed Mean Indifference instead of
No,
Nice
it's
Wonder.
illiterate indifference. The opposite of Reed Nice Wonder is illiterate indifference.
God, fine, Reed. Anyways, but yeah, and she also says that she feels empowered by your videos, Doug. Yeah, I'm sure. I don't know if she's watching the right YouTube channel.
What did you just say?
I was reading the comments there. She wants to know truth, but feels like humans will never know ultimate truth till they die. I would argue that you should bask in your ignorance, because it's ignorance that propels people forward, not ignorance like
No, you should say it. You should be let yourself be ensconced with the uncertainty. That's let it just, rub you and just feel comfortable in it. And uncertainty is a great.
Why you got to make this sexual, Doug?
It is true when we should acknowledge what she's saying. I don't think that we will ever know, quote unquote, ultimate truth.
We talk about meaning in life, right? There's no, what's his name? Darth Dawkins or whatever. Everything has to have meaning or whatever. Well, part of the meaning in life is to understand our ignorance.
Yeah.
So
wouldn't ultimate truth be like knowing everything, including our future? So what would be the point of just doing anything?
Yeah, it's true. That is true. And it's
I think
you guys are missing the point. We're not going to know anything after we die. We're going to be dead.
Right, that's true.
There's no magic. There's no magic knowledge that's going to be imparted.
But to say that we don't know ultimate truth is not to say that we can't learn things. And it's not to say that we can't become less ignorant, or at least less ignorant about certain questions. And I think that's the important thing to recognize is that, we don't have the special deity revealing ultimate revelation to us in such a way that we can be certain of it, despite our fallible nature. But yet we do have methods to learn more about the universe that we live in. And I think at least science has demonstrated over the last, 300 years or 400 years that we can progressively understand more about this world that we live in.
We now know that we can put a Tesla Roadster in a Mars-like orbit. We didn't know that we could do that before. Just think about that for a second. Oh, actually, Reed, tell them what your Tesla is. We might change the Ferrari experiment to the Tesla experiment.
Yeah, we should change it to there is a Tesla Roadster floating through space.
What are the flat earthers' response to Elon Musk? Is he part of the conspiracy?
Yeah.
CG. Really bad CG.
Where are the stars? Where are the stars?
But they're obviously revising. It's like when the Mormons believed there was a colony on the moon and then we landed on the moon, they had to revise their teaching. Like the flat earthers have to revise their teaching that it's just a governmental conspiracy because Elon Musk is, he's not a government agent. He is an entrepreneur.
Well, technically, he is a government contractor.
True. Yeah. He's using the NASA launch pads and recovery. I mean, anyways, how cool is it to see those two rockets landing just simultaneously back on the launch pad?
There are some great amateur videos that were taken around it, like from a distance, and you see just watching the speed at which the rockets are falling back to Earth, and then there's just rapid deceleration, and the gentle landing, like from the distance, you just see people just like the whole crowd is like, oh.
Like these flat earthers. I don't want to hijack it to flat Earth, but I have. These flat earthers have to believe that all those eyewitnesses are also faked in some sense, like because if we have the technology to send these rockets up, and there are so many witnesses to these launches and these recoveries, so they're all in on it. They're all lying about it.
But the launches are not. You can even if the Earth is flat, you can send a rocket up and down.
Yeah,
make sure
they get really
bang into the firmament.
Yeah, they get really mad when you cut to different angles of the footage. Like SpaceX's official footage is cutting to different angles all over the place. But there's actually like civilian footage of just seeing the rockets go up and then come back down in one shot, no cutting.
Yeah, I think their biggest argument is that you cannot see any stars in the camera footage, and what they don't understand is that they're in space where there is unfettered light exposure. There's no atmosphere there to block out any of the sun. So the exposure on the camera is actually, in a way, being saturated by all the sunlight that is reflecting off the car, that is coming. So in order for you to actually see the stars, you would have to have, I guess, a smaller aperture with a faster shutter rate or something like that that could actually filter out all the excess light from the sun and be able to pick up the pinpoint light from the stars.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is the same explanation that they gave for why it was that the moon landing footage was hoaxed, right?
Yeah. But yeah, that was definitely one of the coolest things I've seen in a long time.
I was really inspired by it, to be honest. And
I cried a little.
I don't get inspired by much. And it was inspiring to me.
It's not a very optimistic view of life. Yeah. Not being inspired by much.
Well, I mean, I guess there is a fair bit, especially in physics and philosophy and things like that. But just such a physical demonstration of something that's inspiring. It's different.
I wish I would have recorded that rabbit hangout that we were in, Doug. That was really good.
Did you all go, yeah?
Yeah, we were just like going, oh my God, wow.
Yeah, so I was at my work watching it with some colleagues. I had it on my full screen and had maybe like 5 or 6 people crowded around the monitor, and everybody was like, yeah, like really excited about it. And I felt happy to facilitate it.
Science for Joe. Joe Hitchens went to his daughter's like middle school and got a bunch of the students, like half the school, in the library and put it up on their big projector. And he said like all the little kids were like screaming and cheering for it and stuff. Yeah. That's awesome.
And he did that early in the morning when it was originally supposed to launch, and then he got delayed and he just had to hang out there all day. And what did happen to the children? I guess they just went to their regular classes and came back later.
Yeah, they came back eventually.
Okay.
Yeah, there was another little launch where a whole bunch of school children were watching as the first teacher was going to go into space.
Oh, duh. Don't remind us. God.
Oh my goodness, Leon.
Thanks for bringing us down, Leon.
Pressing his plot.
Too soon, Leon. Too soon. Please.
Andy's just laughing.
Anyways.
Oh, it blowed up real good.
It certainly did. I actually watched some amateur footage of that recently on YouTube. And
of Challenger?
Kind of shit, yeah. Like, a lot of people didn't realize what was going on. It was like, is that what's supposed to happen? Like, was that normal? Like, because all of a sudden you saw these, like, 2 rockets, like, flying off at different directions. And, yeah. Would you want to go to Mars, Pete?
Under what circumstances? Like to be the first person to
with
step
Matt
on
Damon.
Mars?
Yeah, like the first group. Yeah, with Matt Damon. I mean, minus Matt Damon, but you can take a picture of him to jerk off to if you want.
Well, since you said that, then maybe to be honest, I would like us to go to Mars. I don't know if I would like to be the person to be the first one to step on Mars, just because of all the things that could go wrong. I'm not sure I'm willing to sacrifice myself just then and there.
Did you say you're not sure if you're willing to?
I don't think I would sacrifice myself right then and there just for this advancement. I would like to see the benefits that are reaped from us.
Pete, if you could go to Mars with just one person, any person on the planet, you get to choose, and whoever you choose has to go with you. Who would you choose?
I don't know. You want me to pick from someone in this room? Is that... If that's the case, then I'd have to pick someone who would give me the most entertainment.
You want the one with the prettiest mouth, Pete.
Yeah, what kind of entertainment, Pete? Tell us. What floats your boat?
Anyways, but Yeah, I don't think I would be I would want to be the first person. I definitely don't want to be on that. There's that flight of that website of people that are willing to sacrifice themselves to be the first group to be shipped off to Mars, knowing that they won't return and just die there. I don't want to be. I'm not one of those. I'm not on a suicide mission.
I think it's hard to say. Maybe if I didn't have children, I would. But no, I've got kids. It's not going to work.
What does it matter, Pete? You're an atheist. You're just going to die anyhow. Why not sooner rather than later? There's no real meaning and purpose in your life, so you might as well go to Mars.
There's no ultimate meaning and purpose.
That's right, but I'm selfish and I'm addicted to the pursuit of knowledge. So, the sooner I'm out, the less knowledge I'm able to obtain.
But what is all that knowledge like worth if ultimately you die? I mean, like it's just some kind of finely structured organization within your brain.
It's worth my own selfish pleasure.
But, that pleasure is effectively just like atoms in motion, some kind of signal receptors and chemicals within your brain signaling from one to another. Why does that have any meaning?
Well, I better keep those atoms banging into each other because it feels pretty damn good while they're doing it. It's just complete satisfaction.
You say it feels good, but ultimately, does it really? I mean, it's temporary, right?
As far as my perceptions make it feel good, then I can't say otherwise.
If you could make your atoms make you feel good all the time, maximally pleasurable, would you like to do that?
Without doing other harm to myself? Sure.
Mm-hmm. For as long as possible?
So as long as it's just until they lose all their potential energy.
As long as it's maximally pleasurable.
That's it.
Pete, the way you should answer questions like what Cam just asked is to say, "Hey, you might be right. Maybe I don't have any ultimate meaning, but tell me, like, do you have ultimate meaning?" And then he would say, "Yes." So, well, who else? Like, do Hindus and
I don't know if Cam would say he has ultimate meaning.
Well, if he's playing the part of a theist, he would say that. But I think I have found a way to combat that, and that is just, and eventually most theists will admit this, that because they want to gang up on atheists, so atheists don't have this something outside the planet to have a source for ultimate meaning, but Hindus do. So then, but they'll eventually admit that Hindus believe something false, and so therefore you can get ultimate meaning from something false. So if a Hindu can do it, why can't an atheist get meaning from something false? And they're stuck in this quandary now. And then you can ask the question, well, maybe you're getting your ultimate meaning from something false, and how would you know the difference? Is it really just the belief then and not the ontology behind it? And then they'll say, yeah, you're right. Oh, I'm gonna go cry now.
That's how that works in Doug's mind. Yeah.
I think you did. and I apologize for questioning the meaning of your life.
Well, what did you say before that? I didn't hear you.
Who?
You can.
I'm sorry, you can.
I don't know. What did I say? God. Did I say something that was unanswered?
No, I don't. Anyways, I'm very happy with the way things are.
I think you should be.
Thank you. I'm optimistic. As long as I'm optimistic, things will be great.
I think you have a meaningful life, Pete.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I mean, listen, the meaning of life is whatever you make it to be in the end. So it sounds like something my father would say.
Sounds like something Chet would say. Meaning of life is something in the end, would you say?
And so that's whatever you make it out to be, That's it.
Cam got the joke.
Oh no.
Anyways, I think we're all a little delirious from fatigue, so.
You want to call it a night? Oh yeah, you're in the East Coast.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, what's the time there for you?
12:42.
Wow, it's only 9:42 here for me.
Yeah, we're just getting started.
I'm just getting started, but
You can leave, Pete. I'll just take you out.
If you need to go,
That's what happens when you guys live in the past.
I've enjoyed your commentary on the Ferrari thing.
Thank you very much. There's plenty more where that came from. Where are those? Are those videos uploaded to a place where I can watch them tomorrow? Read.
I put them in the messenger chat.
Okay, cool. I'll watch them later.
Okay.
Enjoy, gentlemen.
See ya.
Sure thing.
I'm asking Nathipo if hell still scares her. Oops, does hell still scare hers? I spelled it wrong. I think that's for fundamentalists or very conservative type theists, that takes the longest to get over the fear of hell. I'll fix you, Reed, don't worry.
Yeah, well, it's a scary place, and if for a long time you've believed in it, then yeah, it's unsurprising it would, take a while to get past. And I've talked with some people who, despite being, out of their religion for maybe like 10 years, they still have some remnant fear of this place that they were brought up to fear. And I don't know, at that point maybe it comes a little bit like a phobia, like spiders or something like that. But
I think it took me not too long to get out of it, because I'm a firm believer that if you come from that type of theistic background that believes in damnation, eternal damnation, you almost have to come to terms with that before you leave the belief in order to leave the belief. So you almost have to you have to say to yourself, I value truth so much, I'm willing to go to hell for it. And if you have that attitude, then you now can allow yourself to doubt. And
I don't agree with that.
What?
Which my not agreeing with it is not to say that there aren't people like that, because I definitely think that there are. But my suspicion is that it really depends on which you valued more. Did you value God and, for example, like the benevolence and the love of God more? Or did you value the fear of hell more? Did you value like the prospect of heaven more or the fear of hell? The reason why I say that is because for some people, their highest value within their theology is the loving nature of their God. And so when they come to question their God on the basis of like incompatibility with the physical world that they experience, like their loved ones dying or, examples of suffering or whatever, that causes to doubt that the God exists, and then hell follows from there. Like my wife, for example, she had much more of an emphasis on God's love than she did a fear of hell.
I'm tempted.
It's complicated.
I'm tempted to say that people who say, "Well, no, I'm a Christian or I'm a Muslim," not because I fear hell. It's because I desire to please my God and make him happy and go to heaven. It's more all the positive. I'm tempted to say they're lying. And the reason why I say that is because of human nature that what's the saying, Reed? It takes 7 compliments to outweigh one negative thing said about you.
Negativity bias.
Yeah, the negativity is way of a stronger emotional effect than the positive. Because when you press people on their concept of heaven, they have no idea what it's like, what to expect. They just think it's going to be happy and fun forever and ever, no suffering, no problems. But when you press them, like, do you have shoes in heaven? Do you have ankles? Do you have memories of what happened on Earth?
I think, I mean, I really do understand what you're trying to say. I think so. And like, would you like me to summarize it?
Oh, you mean you're going to repeat back to me what I just said?
I can repeat it back to you if you want.
Okay, go ahead.
Or I can continue. The reason why I think what you're saying is mistaken is because, in my experience, most Christians, the ideal doesn't derive from heaven in and of itself. It actually derives from God and who God is and God's nature, not from heaven. Like, the attractiveness of heaven has nothing to do with some kind of like experience that you'll have there that is apart from God. Heaven's attractiveness derives entirely from the fact that it's God's presence that you are experiencing. It's like, so like, what I'm trying to say is that the concept of heaven is intimately attached to the concept of the deity. That's what's important. It's not this place where you get all the good things that you like in life and you get them to an abundant extent. It's that you get God. That's the idea. And that's why the dichotomy is not between heaven as a place that gives you like reward, like pleasurable experience with respect to things that you find analogous to this everyday world. It's instead that it's like, it's the closestness with God that you can become. That's my take on it anyway.
And this is all in the frame of like theism and theology. Like, psychologically speaking, like, let me think out loud for a second. Like, it comes from the denial of death, that need. Like, we need, that's a human need. It's just, we know we're going to die. So we have this need to deny that. And then morality is intrinsically linked to that. Like, the way we survive our deaths is to be good. Like, if we're good, we can go to the good place, and if we're bad, we go to the bad place. So we can survive our deaths if we live well. I think that's how that works.
Right. Although Christian theism, in at least many manifestations, just completely disagrees with that narrative. Because their attitude really has nothing to do with your being good on Earth. Their narrative has to do with whether or not you attach yourself to what is the ultimate reality. And that ultimate reality is God. And attaching yourself is either some kind of assent to belief in this deity, or alternatively adoption from this deity through some kind of, indwelling of the Holy Spirit, or like this election by God. So the narrative of acting well in order to achieve the good place is absent from most Christian theology. That's actually more present in like Islam, for example.
It doesn't have to be acting well. It could be just accepting whatever that theology is.
Right.
Like yeah.
It's like the ultimate act that covers everything.
Yeah, do that and you get to deny death.
Right, and then even like the Calvinists, they have this unusual perspective that, like, there is really nothing to do with like volition. Like, volition alone is not sufficient to guarantee this connection with God. What alone guarantees the connection with God is God actually, connecting with you.
Calvinism seems to be like ceding all control outside of them, so they don't have to think about these issues of control at all. Like, it's all outside their control. So
okay,
that's
Cam,
a way to that.
You're
Correct
wrong.
me theologically if I got anything wrong, by the way, Doug.
No, I'm going to tell you why you're wrong on your basic premise, because in math you have absolute values, right? So you can make a negative number, a positive number. If you were to say, okay, the joy of heaven, the joy of God's presence, the joy of knowing Him and Him knowing you and having that relationship, give that a number. And let's say that number is 10. Now give the torment of being away from that God and suffering for all eternity in some type of pain, give that a number. And my guess is for most people, that number is higher than 10. It's going to be on the opposite scale, but the absolute value of it is going to be of greater magnitude. And for that reason, I think the fear of hell, the thought of it, overwhelms the communion with this deity.
I mean, I think I agree with you for a lot of people.
I would say the majority of people.
Even yourself as a Christian. My experience, however, is not my personal experience, but my experience with other Christians is not reflective of that. Like, for whatever reason, despite your sound reasoning, that's not how their value structure seems to work. Like, their value structure seems to operate by first a compulsion of the love of God, or like this idea, and I think it goes back to what Reed really likes to analyze, of looking at theology and the manifestation of these ideas about divine beings and that type of thing as like a manifestation of our psychology. And like, from Reed's perspective, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, and I'm happy for you to correct me,
Sure,
but it's more like it would be if you were constituted in such a way.
This is the voice of God. What are you guys talking about? Someone has told me to come and listen in on this. What's going on?
Oh God! Oh God! Oh God! We're talking about your divine nature, God. Can you reveal?
Okay, then you may continue.
Okay, can you reveal to us any truths about yourself?
Yes, turns out 42.
Praise God. Praise be.
Inches or centimeters?
don't panic.
Yeah, is there a units to this number?
Yeah, Cam, I hear what you're saying.
I guess just to complete my thought, I think it'll turn out to be the case that with the way that people are structured psychologically, they have more favor toward like optimism rather than fear. In the way that they're constituted. And those people, I think, are more likely to focus on God as like a, like a positive value, as opposed to focus on God as like something that represents like this opposite negative value of hell and a fear of hell.
Have you seen my YouTube comment section?
Well, yeah, you're a very challenging person. I think that people who are happy in their walk in God probably aren't really seeking you out. But But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm just making excuses for it. But
That's an interesting statement. So you think the people who watch my YouTube channel who are theists are actually unhappy in their Christian or Muslim life?
I suspect so, yeah.
Wow.
Judging by the amount of vitriol you get.
But it does go back to Doug's point, and this will also speak to Reed because everything's a nail because Reed's a hammer. But psychologically, we do react to fear more strongly than we react to optimism. You know, pessimism is more contagious than optimism, and we do know this. Look at politicians. Look at Trump. Like, when you play off people's fears, it's more effective than when you play off their optimism.
That's a good point. Yeah, actually, that's a really good point. I can see that as being evidence against my view.
Didn't I make that point like 5 minutes ago?
Not as compellingly as Leon.
No, but both points can exist and be true at the same time. Cam is making the point that Cam is making the point that there are optimists in the world, and Doug is making the point that there are pessimists in the world. Doug, of course, is very egocentric and believes the rest of the world thinks the way he does, and it's pessimistic. And I think Cam is saying, no, he has experience with optimistic Christians who are focusing on the love. But I think psychology would say that if you had a choice to keep somebody in the faith and you could either emphasize love or emphasize fear, fear would be more effective. It doesn't mean that it's the only way.
Yeah, and you're still focused on the beliefs themselves, and like rather than like the social system of what like religions are. They're ways to get groups of these monkeys to tribe up and get get them into cooperative groups, and the beliefs themselves act as like little markers of tribes. So,
right,
and if you don't believe the beliefs, then you get socially ostracized, and you're by yourself, and you die.
But this is where I think Daniel Dennett is valuable, because when you talk about it in that way, Reed, I think it might make some theists inclined to think that you are just talking about it with what do you call it, like cynicism or something like that. This system was just constructed in such a way to enable monkeys to band together into in-groups or out-groups via like some kind of intentional process. But I think more it's like religion is a natural phenomena. Where,
totally, it's emergent.
Exactly.
There's no conscious like thing going on at all.
Exactly, and it's like this thing that has been, like incrementally developed implicitly through like cultural evolution. And has become very successful at defending against the deconstruction of the belief system through social mechanisms that, propagate it and, make it resilient against change.
Yeah, like the selection mechanism is like selfish individuals outcompete altruistic individuals, but altruistic groups outcompete selfish groups. And the thing that makes altruistic groups altruistic are things like religions. And that created a heavy selection pressure on us. So we're 90% chip, 10% bee. We are highly hypersocial species, and we've been selected for that.
Except for Doug.
Yeah.
Doug's a maverick anomaly.
Nathapo in chat says you're wrong, Cam. Yeah, I'm right. Sorry.
Thanks. I'll have to read their comment.
Apropos, you ignorant slut. Dried up, bagged out slunk meat like you and Michelle Triola know the rules. But oh no, let's all shed a tear for poor Michelle. There was no any evidence that she had sex with over 500 men while married to actor Lee Marvin. But I guess that kind of fashionable promiscuity means nothing to you, Jane, who jumps from bed to bed with the frequency of a cheap ham radio.
And now this live stream will never be monetized. Thanks, Leon.
That was a nice rant.
We'll see if this gets through the YouTube algorithms.
Sorry, in which way did Nathapo disagree? Actually, I'm not concerned, unless they had like a question that they're interested in.
I think she was saying that she came from the perspective that she was more saved from sin, a sinner saved by grace, rather than a how do they say it, a saint.
To be careful and to be explicit, I wasn't meaning to imply that this is true for all Christians.
What percentage of Christians do you think you're describing? Higher than 50 or lower?
I kind of actually think lower than 50%.
Well, then
I know that
why are you giving me grief?
may not may not make me look good, but I actually think it's close. But I do kind of think it's lower. I don't know though, because my exposure to Christians in New Zealand was a very mixed bag. Most of the Christians who I dealt with from my like very close personal life were of the variety that loved God more than they feared hell or something like that. That was their attitude. That's
Cam just not have experience with American or North American religious fundamentalists. I don't think
that is very true. That's definitely true.
But here's the
but one needs to draw a big distinction between fundamental Christians and Presbyterians, Unitarians, Lutherans. There's a real focus on Doug's channel. You can tell these are, fundamental Christians. They're not what we would call mainstream Christians who go to church on Sunday, and church is a community and a way to do charity work and stuff.
I'm a funding magnet. But these are the people I want to talk to, though. So it's by design. And the people, the Christians or Muslims out there who are looking through YouTube for stuff like this tend to be fundamentalists. For anything theistic related.
So, Doug, I have a next topic of discussion if you're interested. Unless you haven't finished your thought.
Yeah, go ahead.
What do you think about biblical harmonization?
Biblical harmonization is another way of saying I have a really good excuse to believe something I really want to believe.
When you were a Christian Reed, did you ever harmonize what you sort of thought were difficult sections of the Bible?
I never read the Bible, and I tried to skip out on church as much as possible. I just wanted to live forever, and it seemed like heaven was real, so that was fine for me. Didn't really think about it too much.
Right. So you didn't really go to that effort to...
No. But I did, I guess, when I went to high school and took my first biology class and learned oh, wait, evolution is a thing. And I grew up in Sunday school with Adam and Eve, literal Adam and Eve. I'm like, well, this isn't making sense. Even in elementary school, science class, the age of the earth, this stuff does not fit together. So it's okay, there's just church life is just different and it's weird. So I don't know what to think about it.
Right. Did you harmonize different passages of the Bible, Doug?
That's a good question. Probably. You kind of have to if you're a Christian who takes the Bible at all seriously. Like, I wasn't the type of Christian who, for a moment, thought that the Old Testament was at all describing reality. But I did think Jesus did. And one thing that gave me a lot of problems when I was a Christian, I think, was the concept of Jesus referring to the Old Testament a lot and going, okay, he has to be just doing this for the Jews and not really meaning it. Like, does this man who I think is God in flesh, did he really think Adam and Eve existed? Oh man, it sure looks like it. Like, that causes some cognitive dissonance if you are a Christian who believes in evolution. Like, it's because it really appears that Jesus really thought there was an original man and woman.
It does, yeah.
And if he did, he was wrong. Jesus was wrong. Sorry, Jesus.
Do you think, like, maybe the people who are already at the point of, like, attempting to harmonize scripture might be on the downward slope toward atheism?
I mean, the whole point of harmonizing is just to rebut criticism. Like, they have to have criticism before they can try to harmonize, right?
Well, I mean, it might be self-criticism. It might be through self-discovery. Like, sometimes people will read, like, you know, a passage in one of the Gospels and sort of have this sort of, like, almost like cognitive dissonance, as Doug described it, where they're like, oh, but hold on, you know, Matthew said this, but now X is saying that, like, you know, and they might come up with some kind of, like, harmonization in their mind that makes sense of why it seemed different when they first read it.
But a better question is, how do you harmonize the Bible with your own experience and reality? I could never do that, even as a kid. Like, Job, who was in the belly of the whale for 3 days?
Jonah.
Jonah. Yeah, you're not alive without oxygen for 3 days, and there's no oxygen in the belly of a whale. Noah's Ark, like,
it was a really big whale, Leon, and it had oxygen in its belly.
Hydrochloric acid dissolving other things gives off gases that are not oxygen.
It's a miracle.
No, the way to harmonize it is it's a miracle. Like, he was either dead and then was resurrected or whatever. Yeah, but I could never, as a child, harmonize my experience, empirical experience, with the way the world was working now. Never mind evolution. Like, just Noah's Ark. I know about all the animals that are on the planet. They would not have fit in the ark, which is described with actual dimensions. And so I could never harmonize my reality, my experience, my empirical, you know, observations with all the shit in the Bible.
But don't you know, though, Leon, like, the groups of animals that went into the ark were actually kinds. And, you know, those species we see today are, yeah, surely they're derivative of the original kinds that were on the ark. But do you know the number of kinds that there were back in however many 6,000 BC?
Right, you're harmonizing. It's an apologetic, right? And I know you're just taking a piss, and I love it. But as a little kid, you're not going that deep into it. You're just looking at, you know, there's thousands and thousands of species. They could not have fit on the fucking ark.
I'm pretty sure it was just giraffes, lions, and elephants.
Those are the only pictures I ever saw of animals going on the ark. Only the interesting animals were on the ark. Only the ones that were fun to draw ended up in the ark.
And the two male lions. Two male lions.
Oh yeah, have you seen that Ricky Gervais segment? Where I love how he keeps on calling God gay. Oh, whoops. This might not be appropriate.
There's a guy named Jungle in the chat right now who's not answering my questions. He's saying that to call someone fundamental, or yeah, A fundamental Christian is one who has a true foundation for their beliefs. That's what fundamentalism means. And I am asking him, how does he know that his foundation is not made of sand? How does he know that his foundation is true? So, Jungle, if you're listening, why do you believe your foundation in God is true? So hopefully he'll... I've been typing that question and he hasn't been answering, so maybe if I'll ask it verbally, he'll respond. But I think educated Christians who... I don't want to say names like who I'm going to compare, but there's certain people I've interviewed who are in my head who I would consider educated, but they are very committed Christians, believe the Bible is basically all true. It has to be a trade-off for them. They're trading off all the good stuff, meaning, purpose, morality, eternal life, outweighs all the problems that they might have in their mind about Jonah, Noah's Ark, Adam and Eve, the Canaanites. Like, that's all like on the back burner because they got all this good stuff.
I got a question for you though, Doug. How important do you think something like biblical authority is, or maybe even biblical inerrancy is, to Christian faith?
Oh, it's very important. The only reason why any Christian knows anything about Christianity is because of the Bible. Right? So unless you believe that the Bible is true, or mostly true, can you say you know anything about Christianity or Judaism? Now, you can still be a deist and think that there's a creator God out there, but that doesn't get you one step closer to theism.
So if you accept that maybe something in the Bible is false, do you think it undermines Christian belief?
It lowers confidence.
I mean, it would depend on the thing you thought was false, but like, how crucial do you think that it is?
Extremely crucial. Here's a question that every Christian doesn't want to have asked of them, and that's this. Jungle, are you listening? Is it reasonable to say that some things in the Bible are true and some things in the Bible are false, that it purports to be true? And it's such a reasonable question because in any other book, they would say, of course, that's reasonable to say that, some things are true and some things are false. People are people. Authors make mistakes. But in this case, in the Bible, if I consider that possibility, then now I have this huge burden on me to figure out which is which. And a lot of Christians don't like that burden.
Well, the thing that's always...
you go there.
Keep your thought. What's always amazed me is, so the Bible is inerrant, it's the word of God. And then when you talk about why don't the Gospels all agree? Why are the Gospels different? Well, they're eyewitness accounts and eyewitnesses make mistakes. I'm like, whoa. If this Bible is sort of inspired by God, like there's such contradiction and suspension of disbelief. Like Christians will bounce back and forth between this supernatural thing called the Bible and then explain why the Bible has these apparent contradictions with very human and empirical arguments. I'm like, no, you can't say that humans are fallible and that's why the eyewitnesses don't quite line up when you're saying the Bible itself was inspired by God. Like, pick one or the other here.
Although that, in my experience, really isn't what they say. They actually say that the witness accounts as they stand are actually true and are actually reliable, but what you're seeing or what you're perceiving is just more an artifact of a different perspective that each individual experiencer had. So it's more that like you had like two people standing on different sides of the room seeing something slightly differently from one another, one another.
Right, but that's also what the argument you just made. I would lump into the humanist argument. Whereas if what's going to end up in the Bible, God gets a say. Like if God is the editor, why would God allow any apparent contradictions in the Bible? He would give those again. If you're going to invoke the supernatural explanation, both those eyewitnesses, those perspectives should line up perfectly, and they don't. Therefore, we got to go to the humanistic explanation. And I know you're.
I think the problem that you have here, Leon, is this type of like almost Islamic idea of inspiration. What I would call a mechanical model of inspiration. It seems that you understand the Bible as being inspired by some kind of like almost literal control, like robots over the authors of the text to produce what was written to us in Greek by God. Now, that's just a mistake. That's you making presumptions about the Bible that just don't hold up to scrutiny. Now, my idea of inspiration is wholly different from that. It's a non-mechanical, loosey-goosey form of inspiration.
Yes, and we're playing a nice little role play here because pick one or the other. If the Bible's inspired, it's inspired. If it's written by humans, it's written by humans, and it is that corkscrewing the square peg into the round hole that my little mechanistic brain has a problem with.
I'm glad you concede.
Hey Jungle, if you're listening, do you agree with me or do you agree with Cam? Like, are you a Christian more because of heaven or more because of hell? You don't want to go to hell. Honest answer. I know it's both. I realize it's both. But if you had what is that movie, Kill Bill 2, 1 or 2, when Uma Thurman's character is, no, never mind. But anyhow, if you had to choose a side, do you think it's the love or the hope for heaven dominates the fear of hell? Because I'm getting a hell vibe from you.
Okay, I want to go back to the role play with Cam. So how then, if the Bible's inspired by God, even in your loosey-goosey way, do you explain the oldest records of, is it Mark? Which is the book of the Bible that has a short version and a long version? Mark. Yeah. So there's a short version of Mark, and the oldest texts we have are the shortest version of Mark. And over time, it seems like human authors added shit to Mark. How do you apologize for that?
So my attitude is that the original manuscripts were inspired. I don't make any claims to particular translations being inspired or the manuscript tradition as a whole being inspired.
So humans fucked it up.
Yes, I see
humans. Sorry for your monetization, Doug. It was fucked up.
I see humans have, making mistakes in both the copying and the translation of manuscripts.
Right. So let's reduce this to the absurd. So your character right now is admitting that humans, like there's human fallibility in the book.
In particular translations of the Bible, yes, not in the original manuscripts.
So this gets back to Doug's original question. So then it makes sense that there could be mistakes in the Bible.
Well, I mean, I'm open to admit that the original manuscripts could have contained errors. I just don't think it's true.
But if later versions contained errors because of what you're talking about, translational errors, and that's the one that I'm reading some version, the New King James or whatever it is, which has the long version of Mark, that version has a mistake. God has allowed that book to get into my hands, and now I'm reading a book that has mistakes in it. This gets back to Doug's question. This gets back to Doug's.
God has not controlled, at least apparently, has not had the type of control over the propagation of the text of the New Testament to the degree that no errors exist in copies. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, and this gets back to effective. You might have a better vocabulary for this, but the idea that this particular software is actually technically designed really, really well, but when you give it to humans, they don't use it very well because they're not understanding it. Whereas a inferior software that is easier to use might be more effective for people. Like that idea of, you know, the Betamax was a better technology than the VHS, but the VHS won out. Like, if there are copies of the Bible that end up being popular and in most people's hands, but they're wrong, then that speaks to maybe the whole thing is screwed up. Why would God have allowed this bad version to be popular and out there when, you know, if it's God?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It really is, and that could be challenging to my Christian faith. If it were the case that you could produce an example of a kind of error that affected some kind of central doctrine of my faith.
So let's stick to a smaller let's stick to Mark. And correct me when I go off the rails here. My belief is, or my impression is, the snake handling, if you believe in God, you can handle a snake and not die, is the longer version of Mark. Is that
That's right?
Okay. There's people who have died because of that version of the Bible.
Unfortunately, yeah, and they have mistakenly placed their faith in something we know is false. Yeah, or at least we know wasn't inspired.
Right. So this gets back to the effective version that gets out there and gets popular has detrimental effects. So this God person's kind of fucked up. Maybe just giggling that people handled snakes and died because maybe he's a malevolent God.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one version of a problem of evil that we could examine further. I have a podcast on that particular topic that I can refer to, but I'd like to shelve the problem of evil for the time being and just examine the question of both the reliability of the New Testament and the question of the inspiration of the textual manuscripts.
And I don't think we need to leave my example, because if we are talking about, you know, the proper translation and all of that, if a bad translation has bad consequences, dying from snake handling, does that not speak to the God themselves that is purported to be described in the Bible? Even without the problem of people.
I think no more than an earthquake killing people does.
You got to make those connections for me. The earthquake is
well. It seems that you have an idea of God, that He's like actively intervening in the world on a permanent basis in order to ensure that all members of society come to believe the correct things about the gospel, or at least the correct things about God. I just don't think that's the way God operates, and I don't see why I'm confined to that view on the basis of my Christianity.
Well, I think my argument, to distill it down, is chinks in the armor. If we can think of easily examples where the Bible is fallible, why believe any of it?
Well, I mean, I really don't know what else to say other than to say that, like, you just have a mistaken view of what the Bible is meant to be. Like, you just started with a presumption, and then, like, yeah, sure, that presumption failed, but what does that say about God other than what it says about your presumption?
I'm saying, no, I'm not talking about God. I'm talking about the Bible. I'm saying if I can clearly show an example where the Bible is wrong, why would I put my eternal salvation onto this book that's clearly got some mistakes in it.
So do you mean what you can say about the Bible, or do you mean what you can say about the original manuscripts?
No, yeah, let's be clear in our language. If the Bible I was given as a child has the long version of Mark, and now as I grow older, I realize the long version of Mark is actually not the original version of Mark. So now I have an example where the Bible I read as a child and was told this is the Bible. And again, to be fair, I think there are more copies of the Bible with the long version of Mark out there than there are copies of the Bible with the short version of Mark.
I have to say, almost all translations I read, unfortunately, include the longer version of Mark.
Yes, thank you for saying I'm right. And so therefore, this thing called the Bible is unreliable. I'm going to throw the whole thing out. Rather than go through it minutia by minutia and figure out what's right and what's wrong, I'm not going to spend the mental power to do that. I'm just going to be a Muslim where the Quran has been unchanged for 1,000 years.
I mean, I understand that motivation. I see it as it may be a hasty generalization or an unwarranted conclusion. And maybe if I was to draw an analogy, I would say it's somewhat like reading Einstein's book on relativity in reading an English translation of the German that made a mistake and concluding, therefore, that special relativity was false. That's
a very good analogy, Cam. I'm surprised that you were able to make it. That's actually a very good analogy. It's close to what we're talking about, and the implications of it are very poignant. Do you have a little microphone in your ear? Is somebody feeding you ideas?
What should I say? I'm summoning my alter ego.
I was going to say, because the analogy you just made, I would say is probably the strongest analogy to be made against a person with my line of reasoning right now. Because my line of reasoning is throwing out the baby with the bathwater. Like I'm doing that. If there's a slippery slope, we slide all the way to the bottom and we can get rid of it. Whereas again, most not secular Christians, but most mainstream Christians don't take the Bible as inerrant. They don't take it as infallible. They're saying there's a core there. There's a central idea that is worth believing, even though we know some of these other little issues are there. We can recognize that there are issues. We can recognize that the whole thing might not be perfectly true, but don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
I think so. And role play end.
So Nathapo is saying that that she is a Christian still, but maybe not, and is scared to let people know that she's doubting, especially her daughter, who's a young teenager. I guess my question is, like, what's your biggest fear about letting your daughter know that you have doubts or that you may not believe anymore?
Ostracization.
From her daughter?
Maybe. Or at least some type of social consequence. Negative social consequence.
There's that nail again. Reed's got a hammer. He sees a nail.
Nathapo, both my kids know I'm an atheist. It's no secret. But this is what I tell them. I tell them that, hey, I'm not omniscient. I'm not perfect. Could there be a God out there? Sure, maybe. I don't know what this God's like, if he exists and so forth. But I don't have any reasons to believe at this point in my life, so I'm unconvinced. And then we go from there. It's like, if you be totally and utterly honest with your kids and show your kids that it's okay to say, I don't know, that you don't know something or you're not sure about something, man, you're going to get respect from your kids. That's my opinion. I would say my daughter does not believe. My son's maybe, I don't know, he's only 11, so maybe 50-50. But, yeah, they can say anything to me, and I'm not going to judge them. I'm not going to, at one point my daughter said to me, Dad, I think I need Christianity, but I just can't force myself to believe. And I told her, if you feel you need Christianity, go for it. And, but I said, yeah, I understand. It's kind of hard for you to force yourself to believe something when you're not convinced of it. So the point of why I'm saying all this is to let you know that I think your daughter will be understanding.
It's a hard situation to be in. Making choices about things that affect your children they're tough choices. And
yeah, well, the hardest thing is, and I don't know Nathapo's situation, but if you're married and your husband is a very committed believer, yeah, then it really becomes complicated. Like in my situation, my wife's born again Christian.
Well, and that was my situation for many years as well.
Nathapo, you say that you want your daughter to grow up with Christian values, and there's a lot of great Christian values, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of negative too. And don't forget about the negatives that coexist with the positives. And let me give you an example of a negative.
What are the negatives, Doug?
Here's a negative, and this, again, this doesn't exist in every form of Christianity, but let's say your daughter, Nathapo, is 17, 18, 19 years old, and, hormones are raging. She sees this guy, really attracted to this guy, and I don't know what kind of Christian background you come from, but if it's on the conservative side, she probably will say, well, I can't have sex with this guy because that would be a sin. That would be wrong. That would make God sad. So, you know what? I think I'm going to marry this guy. But let's be honest. She's very young. She's only 18, 19. And she's getting married for the reason of this hormonal attraction, burning with lust sort of idea. She ends up marrying the wrong guy. And now she's stuck in this situation of she got married for the wrong reason just because Christianity says don't have sex before marriage. You know how many marriages are like this, Nathapo? A lot in Christian circles. But now, I'll be very honest, a lot of times it can still work. I think love is a commitment, and so you can still plow through it and have a good life, all that stuff. But there's an example where Christianity can do a lot of harm.
I think another one is where, it may not be true of Natalie, I think her name is, but there is a tendency among Christians to limit exposure to the wider world. Limit exposure of their children to the wider world. And I think that can really be disadvantageous when they start to grow up and, integrate themselves with a wider world that, does involve, people of other beliefs and a culture that may not be as unified as what it is in their home. And yeah, I think that can produce negative things.
Here's another thing. Guilt. The guilt and shame that Christians feel. No, they'll say that, Jesus saved me from the guilt and shame. But that whole Christian walk of trying to figure out God's will for your life, and I saw this certain thing on the internet and I should feel very guilty about it, and like that can take a psychological toll. It's not all upside.
Now maybe we should offset these negatives by talking about positives.
Yeah, the positive is the community aspect. So if your daughter goes to church and has all her friends at church and Sunday school and so forth, and if, let's say, your daughter was someday not to believe because you no longer believe, she may indeed lose some friends because they don't have that binding thing in common. Yeah, that's the community aspect's very positive.
Yeah, thanks for being so open, Natalie.
What else is positive about Christianity besides community? That's about it.
Well, I think that God does constitute a, like an ultimate realization, an ultimate manifestation of our most positive values, and what it is that we think is, best to be embraced in the world. Unfortunately, that means that when people with shitty values hold that attitude, they end up thinking that, ultimate reality supports their views that we should, devalue other humans like homosexuals on the basis of their sexual preferences, or devalue people of other races on the basis of the color of their skin. But in some Christians and Jews and Muslims, that embrace of their own values and their kind of the transcendence of their own values to this ultimate reality means that they take good things about themselves and see it as being like what is dictated from on high. It's like the thing that's said to be effectively the best thing in the ultimate universe, and that can produce wonderful things. It can produce people of immense compassion that progress social values, and ultimately I think it's coming from those humans themselves that happen to have wonderful ethics and evolved ethics, socially evolved ethics. But because of the fact that they see it as being dictated from on high, or at least being part of the ultimate reality of the world, it does give them extra motivation.
Yeah. Can I sum that up as it gives them a sense of certainty?
Sure, but it's certainty in conjunction with additional positive output from them as a human, because it can motivate them to do extraordinary things that otherwise somebody may not have. Like, you see people, there are people out there who do genuinely go on religionistic missions across the world, which, yeah, sure, they may involve some kind of component of teaching people about their religion, but ultimately they bring value to other people's lives and in other countries. And I think that there are countless examples of this, and we should pay attention to it.
Reed, were you going to say something?
What were we talking about? The values of Christianity? Any positives?
Positives of Christianity.
Well, if we take like Jordan Peterson seriously and talk about Christianity as mythology, which I think we would all agree it is, and the roots of mythology, how mythology came about, how it's just like a distilled version of the best of all stories, and they just get down to the archetypes. Like, I think Christianity is one of the best ways to articulate the idea of like the divinity of the individual, and it's the individual that's at the core of even the US, government and how democracy works. So that was a stepping stone to get to that idea. So that could be part of it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, like, a lot of apologists will say, well, Christianity is because we have science today and the scientific method today because of Christianity. It laid the stepping stones for the concept of objective reality and truth and seeking that, and that came from Christian principles. And there was a lot of Christian scientists and so forth. And, a lot of the democracies were formed from Christian cultures. I can grant all that. I can say, sure, fine, whatever. But question is, do we still need that today? Jordan Peterson would probably say, yeah, we still need these myths.
I mean, we perform the experiment, and we can go off the data from that experiment. We don't need the mythology that inspired the experiment.
Right. People were in the comments have been saying the other positives about Christianity is hey, you got the reward of heaven. That's pretty cool, right? Get to see your loved ones after death, hopefully. Maybe a basis for morality. God says to do X, so when we don't do X, we know what's wrong. It makes morality simpler.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was before speaking in the context of not necessarily it being false, but like, I don't think it's relevant to talk about it in the sense that it's definitely true. All those things are based on the idea that it's actually true. I think that we can see benefits of it even if it's false. Now,
yeah.
whether or not in aggregate those benefits outweigh the negatives, I find highly questionable. I think that at least, and I don't have any kind of science demonstrating this. It's an evaluation from my own point of view. But from my own point of view, the negatives outweigh the goods. I think everything that I have described so far, even glowingly, can be achieved without belief in the Christian God. And the mistake to make is to presume that such benefits can only be achieved through this belief. If you are able to recognize the benefit in isolation, you're able to recognize the benefit in absence, and in particular, an absence of the God being true.
Leon, what percentage of the population of the world need a God belief, in your opinion?
Probably 90.
Does it have to be a God belief, or just a, what's the guy who's saved from Sapiens? Just what's
shared myth.
Term? Yeah, shared myth.
Well, almost 100%. Like, even atheists have to have a shared myth if they're not going to commit suicide, and it's secular humanism, or you know what I mean, like there, or your political party, like communism. Like we talked about this earlier, just what we were selected for, and when they do the little studies on young children before they can be indoctrinated, they just give agency to things. Why is there a sun? To give me warmth. Why are there trees? So I can be in the shade. Like, we have evolved to have supernatural beliefs. It's part of our DNA. And so we need humans who don't necessarily have a religion they actually sort of adopt secular humanism or their political party. They have something, some group, some in-group that they identify with and belong to and all that other stuff.
So am I doing something bad then if it's true that 90% need a God myth to survive?
I've said this before. You can't. It's almost like when people give up heroin for methadone, or almost every recovery program ever. People are still smoking and drinking coffee like banshees. Like you almost need to replace a habit with a different habit. So don't take away their belief. Replace it.
With what, a YouTube channel?
Well, no, your own shared mythology is that concept of human flourishing. But that's its own mythology. There's no, look at the animal kingdom. There's no other animal that believes in the animal flourishing of other animals. It is a human idea, even that, all humans have inherently the same equal human rights. Well, no, there's no empirical basis for that. That's just a myth. We like to believe it. It's probably a good thing to believe, but there's no reason out there to believe that every human, that's some bad lighting, that every human has inherently the same worth. It's just a nice idea to believe.
Yeah, because I see Natalie in the chat, and honestly, I think to myself, maybe she's better staying a Christian.
Yeah, there is this difficulty, though, that our brains don't really work that way.
I know. That's the thing. Like, once you start doubting, sorry to say this, Natalie, but once you're on that path, it's like, well, I always say it's like being a kid and seeing the presents at Christmas in your parents' closet. Like, it's really hard to believe in Santa Claus after that. And so it's like, there's no turning back. What's this?
Like, here's a shared myth that just came out. Steven Pinker's new book, Enlightenment Now: The Case for Reason, Science, Humanism, and Progress. Like, there's this quote here: everything that is not forbidden by laws of nature is achievable given the right knowledge. That's a super optimistic view of the future. Like, if we can learn about the world, we can improve life. Like, we can have human flourishing through our advancements in technology and our knowledge of the world.
Have you read anything by David Deutsch?
No, I haven't.
I recommend his books. He's an interesting author.
Cool.
He's also like one of the foundational proponents of the Everett interpretation of quantum mechanics.
Really? I don't know what that means, but
just a segue into something I'm interested in.
Have you heard of Spiros Mihalakis?
Is that the author of like one of these popular books on like human psychology that we've been reading? It sounds familiar.
He's a quantum what's the mathematical physicist for quantum.
Okay, no, I haven't heard of him.
But like, he solved one of the millennial problems, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we had him on the podcast for Mixed Metal Arts like a couple weeks ago, and the video podcast I just edited is up like yesterday, and he's just talked for like an hour and a half about his problem that he solved in quantum mechanics and stuff. It's really crazy.
Wow.
I'll send you the link.
I should listen to that. That sounds good.
I'll send you the link.
David Deutsch, though, you should. He's if you want to know anything about him, which I think is a better person to read than Steven Pinker, to be honest. But he is effectively the like initial creator of quantum computers and the field of quantum computation. He was effectively the first person to realize that that if it were the case that we could create a quantum computer, that we would be able to compute things that classical computers were unable to, and which has effectively led to the foundation of a field within computer science called quantum computation, which both analyzes the theoretical possibilities that quantum computation allows, but also investigates like the practical ways in which we could create quantum computers, like in our physical world.
Cool. I think I've heard him on one of Sam Harris's podcasts, maybe.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was on one of Sam Harris's.
Natalie was saying that she really has a problem with the God of the Old Testament. Like, if you're being honest, who doesn't? But she saw videos of me replacing the word Yahweh with Jesus. Because if you're a Trinitarian, of course, Jesus is God. And she said that really threw her for a loop. And I thought, that's exactly what I was going for.
Yeah, that's the point.
Yeah. And how many Christians today who just say, I just love Jesus. I love Jesus. And yeah, that Old Testament stuff, I really don't understand it, but I love Jesus. Well, Jesus is the guy who murdered the Canaanites. You know that, right? He gave the order. Jesus gave the order. Jesus is
I just think she lacks a sufficiently nuanced theology.
Yeah. Well, that's how...
not one of these again. How many of these have we done tonight?
Well, we must play both sides.
Yeah.
Whenever I hear the word nuance, I know BS is about to follow.
It's apologetics. That's what it is. I do actually have a desire to become the best Christian apologist.
I just have the desire to say beast, like beast.
Women, beast.
That's just the best way to say beast. Beast. I can't say it.
What are you trying to say?
The best.
Beast.
He's trying to imitate my
beast.
We should play a game where we listen to sound bites of people talking and we have to say gay or New Zealand.
Oh yeah.
Thanks, Leon. Why not both?
All right, you guys, you gonna go to bed yet?
5 minutes.
Yeah.
Let's make
Is that up my time? Yeah.
What time is it there, Doug? Is it 11:55?
Yes.
10:55.
Yeah, we can take this offline in 5 minutes if you guys want. But Natalie, closing thoughts for Natalie? Anybody want to encourage her? Or do you want to be dorks?
No, I do. I mean, I don't want to encourage her to like lose belief, but just that there is an alternate way to see things, and it has a value structure as well, and you can still find value in life outside of Christian theism, but it'll be hard. It really will. It'll be hard socially. It might be hard within your family, but there are other people you can reach out to who have gone through the same thing. And I've watched a number of people in my life go through the same thing. And each of them has turned out they've proved able as a human to be able to deal with the hard consequences of losing belief in something that was fundamental to their life. And so, at least to me, that tells me that humans are malleable and that they're capable of getting through these difficult life changes. And I think it's brave to do so. You should be fearful, but optimistic.
Okay, that's good, Cam. What you said was pretty good, but let me show you how it's done. Natalie, look at me, Natalie. Look at my eyes. Your life is going to be 10 times better once you give up Christianity and just let go. You're going to be freed of that burden. You're going to be freed of that cognitive dissonance. You can be free to say, I don't know, and be okay with it. You're going to look at people differently as fellow human beings that are not mired by muck and sin and total depravity, but you're going to see them as fellow humans who do good and make mistakes. You're going to be okay. There's going to be people still around you to help you. Good luck. That's how you do it.
Good luck. I think that was much better, Doug.
Good night and good luck, everyone.
See y'all. Thanks for hanging out.
Bye-bye.
Bye.